Once upon a time, in the heart of a lush green forest, there lived a wise old owl named Oliver. He had feathers as dark as night and eyes that twinkled with knowledge. Every creature in the forest respected him for his wisdom and fairness. One sunny afternoon, Oliver was perched on his favorite branch when he heard a commotion in the bushes below. As the animals rustled around, he saw two figures emerge, a sleek black snake named Slinky and a timid young rabbit named Rosie. "Let me get this straight," Slinky hissed, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You want me to help you defeat your fear of snakes so you can finally cross the meadow in peace?" "Yes," Rosie squeaked, her nose twitching nervously. "I've always wanted to frolic in the meadow, but the thought of all those snakes slithering around terrifies me." Slinky rolled his eyes. "Look, lady, I don't have time for this. I was just minding my own business, basking in the sun, when you came along and scared me half to death." "Oh, I'm sorry," Rosie said, her ears drooping. "I didn't mean to intrude. It's just that I really want to be able to enjoy the meadow, but I'm just too afraid of snakes." Slinky sighed. Helping this rabbit was going to be more trouble than it was worth. But he couldn't bear the thought of her living in constant fear. So against his better judgment, he agreed to help. "All right, Rosie, tomorrow morning, meet me at the edge of the forest. We'll start your training then." With that, Slinky slithered away, shaking his head at the ridiculous task he'd been roped into. As soon as the sun peeked over the horizon, Rosie was at the edge of the forest, her heart pounding in her chest. Slinky, who had arrived a few minutes earlier, saw her and uncoiled himself from around a tree. "Ready, Rosie?" he asked, trying to sound encouraging. The rabbit took a deep breath. "As I'll ever be," she replied. And with that, she hopped out into the meadow. At first, everything was fine. Slinky kept a close eye on Rosie, ready to guide her away from any potential danger. But soon, her fear began to take hold again. She started to notice all the snakes basking on the warm grass, their sleek bodies glistening in the sunlight. "Oh, Slinky," she cried, her voice trembling. "I can't do this. There are too many snakes. I'm going back." And with that, she turned to flee. Slinky let out a frustrated hiss. "We're not going back. You have to face your fear, Rosie, or it will always control you." He urged her to stop and look at him. "Why do you fear a snake so much? We're not all that scary, you know." Rosie took a shaky breath and turned back to face him. "But you're long and slimy, and you move so unpredictably. I just don't understand how anyone could be calm around you." Slinky felt a surge of anger, but he knew that wouldn't help their situation. Instead, he decided to try a different approach. "Would you feel better if I could show you how we move? If you understood me better, maybe your fear would vanish?" Intrigued by his words, Rosie nodded slowly. Maybe, she whispered. And so Slinky began to show Rosie the world from a snake's point of view. He demonstrated how they moved through the tall grass, how they basked in the sun, and even how they hunted for food. To his surprise, Rosie watched with fascination. The more she learned about snakes, the less afraid she became. They spent the whole day together in the meadow, and by the time the sun began to set, Rosie was no longer the timid rabbit she once was. She realized that snakes weren't the monsters she'd imagined them to be. They were just creatures trying to live their lives just like her. As the sky blazed with hues of orange and purple, Slinky and Rosie made their way back to the forest. "Slinky, I'm not afraid anymore," Rosie exclaimed, her voice filled with newfound confidence. "Can I really cross the meadow now?" Slinky smiled, his scales gleaming in the twilight. "Of course you can, Rosie. You're braver than you think." And with that, Rosie dashed across the meadow, her white tail bobbing with joy. Slinky watched her go, a sense of pride swelling within him. He may not have wanted to be a mentor, but seeing Rosie overcome her fears brought a warmth to his cold-blooded heart. From that day on, Rosie spent her days frolicking in the meadow with her new friend Slinky by her side. The other rabbits, who had always teased Rosie for her fear, were amazed at her bravery. Even Oliver, the wise old owl, was impressed by the unlikely friendship that had blossomed between a snake and a rabbit. News of their bond spread throughout the forest. Soon animals from all over came to see the brave rabbit and the kind snake who had helped her. Slinky, who had once been known as the loneliest snake in the forest, was now celebrated as a hero. And Rosie, once ridiculed for her fears, was admired for her courage. Together, they proved that friendship could blossom in the most unexpected places, and that even the smallest creature could overcome the greatest fear with a little help from an unlikely friend. One day, as Slinky and Rosie were lounging in the meadow, basking in the glow of the afternoon sun, they heard a commotion in the trees. A group of young squirrels chattered excitedly as they scampered from branch to branch. "What's all the commotion about?" Slinky asked, tilting his head. One of the squirrels, a cheeky young fellow with a bushy tail, scampered down a tree and approached them. "Slinky, Rosie," he said, his voice breathless, "we need your help." "What's wrong?" Rosie asked, her ears perking up. "There's a big storm coming," the squirrel explained, his voice filled with worry, "and we're afraid the old oak tree might fall on our tree hollow." "We don't know what to do." Slinky and Rosie looked at each other. They knew they had to help. The old oak tree was home to many of the forest animals, and if it fell, several creatures would be injured or worse. "Don't worry, little ones," Slinky said, his voice calm and reassuring. "We'll help you." And with that, Slinky and Rosie rallied the other animals to help secure the tree hollow. Squirrels scurried about gathering vines and branches, while birds used their beaks and claws to help stabilize the tree. Even some of the rabbits, who had once teased Rosie for her fear of snakes, came to help, their fear of storms far greater than their fear of snakes. Working together, they managed to reinforce the tree hollow, making it sturdier and more resistant to the strong winds and heavy rains that accompanied the storm. By the time the storm hit, the animals were exhausted, but proud of what they had accomplished. As the wind howled and the rain poured, the animals huddled together in the safety of the tree hollow, grateful for Slinky and Rosie's help. The storm raged on for hours, but as the first rays of sunlight peeked through the clouds, the animals emerged from the tree hollow to see that the worst had passed. The old oak tree was still standing thanks to their efforts. The forest, though drenched, was still intact. The animals erupted in cheers, their relief and gratitude evident in their voices. Slinky and Rosie, who had become heroes of the forest, basked in the admiration of their fellow creatures. They had proven that even the most unlikely of friends could come together to help others, and that true friendship meant standing by each other's side, no matter what. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the animals went about the task of cleaning up the forest, their spirits lifted by their shared experience. Slinky and Rosie, side by side, surveyed the scene, knowing that their friendship had not only helped them overcome their fears and prejudices, it had also made them better, kinder friends and braver adventurers. Their journey from fear to friendship had not been easy, but the bond they shared made it all worthwhile.